Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today I want to say, screw you, Elon. All right, so today we had this apparently this tweet come out from Elon, and he's here. We are on the Guardian. Elon Musk, Tesla chief, has asked employees to return to the office or pretend to work somewhere else. Apparently, this was a memo that was sent to everyone at the company. So they're saying about 30% of the employees are still working from home, and many companies are moving to a hybrid model. But apparently, the world's richest man is apparently soured on the idea of his executives working from home. In a memo headline, "Remote work is no longer acceptable," Musk wrote, "Anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office minimum, and I mean minimum of 40 hours a week or depart Tesla." Wow, that's kind of a interesting, very interesting. So I guess my view on it is I sort of skewed, right? Because I'm a permanent work from home employee, and I work as an engineer. And the reality of it is that, working as an engineer, um, in this particular case, I'm doing like, chip design and things like that. So basically work for companies that, design ASICs and chips that are used in everything from, computers to, networking equipment, whatever, that are taped out at, some of the, advanced fabs in the world, TSMC. I mean, that's where everyone tapes out their chips. And, working in this field, of course, that is correct that, we do need to collaborate a lot. But, I find it very interesting that, the way the environment has changed, it's like I'm on like a Teams environment, and I'm sure there's other environments, but basically, everyone knows when you're logged in on the team. You're all shared on this team, and you all have a green light or a yellow light if you're stepped away, or red light if your computer's off. So it's not like you don't know the person's there. All right, so that's number one. Number two, we have in many ways we can collaborate better on a Teams type of thing than actually getting in person. This has always been, kind of an interesting issue, right? So, for example, if I'm sharing something and drawing something on a whiteboard, or I'm drawing, or many times like we'll use like a Visio or something like that, and that's how we draw and share our ideas and stuff like that. Sure, sometimes, drawing on a whiteboard does help, but then you always find you have the problem with like, we're using our phones to take pictures of the whiteboard, like, oh, we need to write that down somewhere before we lose it, or the cleaning staff erase is what we just spent an hour yip yapping about. I mean, the real reality is, it's very interesting. So I started at the current company that I'm at, and I was remote the whole time, and I haven't met anyone in person. And so I guess that's a little weird, but I do feel like I have a relationship with the people there, a relationship with my boss, and I think that I am providing value to the company. I mean, first of all, in terms of performance and all that, it's like, I guess it depends on what it is, right? I mean, engineering is it's very direct. It's like, did you get the work done? Does the thing you designed, does it work or does it not work? Does it meet the requirements or does it not? So it's very kind of simple. It's a very simple thing. So, maybe for, the kind of engineering that I do and stuff, that makes sense. I mean, maybe there's other roles that are different, et cetera. And I'm not opposed to going in for sure. I mean, I like to get together with people, but, it's very interesting that now that like a lot of the offices have opened up, people are like, well, I can't see what you're sharing because I'm in the car. They're like, well, I'm driving it to work. So, okay, well, you have to wait for the person, get into work. It takes them an hour. And then also when they're at work, it's kind of interesting. They're kind of like offline because they're kind of off doing stuff and, being sociable or whatever. So it's like when you really need, your lead or whatever, and you're trying to like, oh, geez, I got to run this past my lead, got to check with my boss on this. You just see like, oh, they're nowhere to be found because they're actually in the office. Whereas if they were at home, they'd be like there and you could get in touch with them if you need to. So I get it. I mean, I understand what he's saying, but it's like, hey, screw you. If you can't manage that, that's on you. And we're in a new world. And I think, it's interesting bossing people around. But here's what happens. So Elon comes out with this thing and he says, minimum 40 hours in the office or screw you, find another job. Well, this is what's going to happen. And apparently he does have some, chip development there, right? Because he has like his own full self-driving chip and stuff like that. So apparently he does have some engineers probably do something similar to what I do. And you know, one of the problems with these kind of statements is, the first people to leave are are the people that actually are in the best position to leave, that are, doing the best work, that are in a position, those are the first people to leave. So like making these kind of statements, I know he's sort of a bravado kind of guy. It's like really actually very dangerous and stupid ass thing to do, because the reality is, like, if he takes into one of his groups, and might have a group like on the chip stuff, a big group, core group between 10 to 20, and then depending how much is outsourced, insourced, 50 people, you start losing like a couple, even if you lost like five of your top performers out of that group, you're going to set your chip back, and you're going to delay, and you're going to have problems, because and who are you going to lose out of that group? Maybe you're complaining about, like, gee, one person is so slow, it's just taking them forever to get their work done, and it's slowing up our projects. But the reality is, that's not the person that's going to leave. The person that's going to leave is your best performer, is going to say, you know what, screw you. I don't want to deal with this anymore, and I'm gone. So that's usually how this goes. And, it's kind of interesting. I've been at companies where one of them was a situation where, look, they shut down the group and they shut down that development, and they needed key people. So what do? They give us lots of money. Like, we're talking six figures. Like, okay, six figures isn't a lot of money, but like for an engineering person, like you're getting a year of salary for staying on for an extra year, an additional year of salary, or a year and a half of salary at a decent salary. I mean, it's pretty good dang money. And it's like, okay, well, I have to stay on, So those are the kind of things that you get into, you always end up like demotivating the wrong people. And so he should probably wise up. Now, another thing that's going on too, reading about it, is he's talking about laying off 10% of their staff. Now, it's interesting. So he's talking about the office staff. So this could be, anyone that's in an office. So we're talking, it sounds like he's not laying off the manufacturing and stuff like that. But see, the interesting thing is, I did a video on this earlier, why Tesla, just like all automakers, are gonna, they're gonna have a slowdown in this recession. The recession is coming. I mean, it's looking at it, look at the data, look at the results. You go back through when recessions occur, when the Fed is raising rates and messing around with things. I mean, it's pretty clear that the probability of them raising rates without causing recession is almost zero, right? I mean, we already had the negative 1.5% GDP print for the first quarter, and the second quarter, like, we might not actually have that. It just depends. I have this feeling, because a lot of that was due to imports, a spike, like large increase in imports. Now, with all the China stuff going on, where they had all the shuts down for cerveza sickness, it's possible that we might get lucky and actually not have a negative GDP print for Q2. I don't know. It's like a lot of the data that you need to kind of estimate that. I don't have data. It's not coming out yet. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's possible we might just skate by and not have that technical recession on that. But going back to Tesla's just a car maker like all the other car makers. I mean, they make good cars, and I am impressed with, they've done a lot of innovative stuff. That's pretty good. 10 years ago, you say you're going to start a car company, you'd say you're crazy. You're just crazy. Why would you do that? But he did it, and he's successful. And I had gone through the financials, and they had, really pretty good financials too, very, very solid, decent margin and all that stuff. But here's the problem. If we're coming into recession or even a slowdown, here we're going to look at total vehicle sales. We go to St. Louis Fred data. We can go look at this guy, and we can just kind of take a look here. And we can see that all these gray areas are recessions. As you come into recession here, you can see that, okay, start of the recession, 14 million vehicles, boom, drops to less than 10, 9. Then over here at this recession here, it kind of spiked up a little to 14, and then it dropped as well. And then you see over here, this one's kind of an exception here. This one back in 2001, there wasn't a much big impact. You had a spike in sales at the end of it. So that was not really very characteristic. But now this one, the financial crisis, you had a huge drop off. At the start, you were about 16 million in sales, and at the bottom, you're 9.7 million sales. And then over here, even just this little tiny spike with the cerveza shutdown, they went from 17 million, down to 8.9 million in sales. So that is critical. That's the point. Like, all these car companies are going to have issues. They're going to get a slowdown. And this is where, the next thing that Elon had was coming out with, like, he feels concerned about, has a funny feeling or a bad feeling about the economy. Well, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's he can smell it, right? And I think a lot of these CEOs can smell it. They realize that they've probably staffed up too fast, assuming demand is going to stay where it is. I think that many of them are, first of all, they're pretty smart people, even though they'll come out there and they'll say stuff that seems absurd at times, but they're, you have to separate the part that's the spokesperson for their company, spokesperson for the economy versus, the CEO who's like, look, I'm going to cut back on staff because, I know interest rates have gone to 3%. They've gone from approximately 1.5 to 3% on the 10-year in a little over 6 months. That's a huge move. He knows that that's going to kill off his sales. He's losing a bunch of customers due to that. And so even though if you look right now at Tesla and maybe the sales at this point haven't dropped off, now he knows it's coming, right? He knows that marginal buyer. He knows where that all that stuff is, and he knows that he's going to be losing customers. I mean, it's just a given. He's not stupid, So I think that's kind of why he has that feeling, and I think it's probably worth paying attention to, because so now what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of these big companies are going to cut back on their hiring, and they may start shifting to doing layoffs and stuff very fast. So you're going to turn really quick from a surplus of jobs to possibly not enough jobs, or not enough people to fill the jobs, right? So you have a shortage of employees to going to have an excess of employees, and it's going to turn on a dime like that. And that's how fast these things are going to change, because they're going to have to make these moves. And the other thing to keep in mind is so I have a brother that does finance for companies and stuff. And, obviously I don't know any proprietary, anything like that. No one would share any of that, of course. But the idea is that these companies, they have it dialed in. So what happens is for them to release their quarterly numbers, there's a whole bunch of resolutions and things they have to do to get all their charges and all that stuff figured out. However, on the sales end, it's they know to the minute, they're either, it's something like they're closing daily or they're closing weekly their sales, right? So they know what their sales were. They know the cost of, well, they don't know completely the cost of sales, but they just have their sales stuff down, a lot of their expenses down, and they just have it down to the monthly. So, if Elon comes out and says that now, and we're sitting here in early June, and he's recorded, so let's say March, so April, May, June. So he already knows what the next quarter numbers are going to be. If the numbers were really bad, he would have to disclose. So assume it's not the case. But if he sees the drop off, he would see it on a weekly basis. Like, these guys have their dashboards and stuff, and they're not sitting there. They're not going to be like, oh, we had our quarterly meeting 1 week before we're going to release our numbers to figure out whether we made our numbers. No, they live by every week we're closing, every week we're estimating everything, and we have the numbers, we have the sales numbers. I mean, that's how these guys do this stuff. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you have someone saying something, we're in the last month of the second quarter for a lot of companies, right? So you got to keep that in mind. They already have all the data. They already have 2/3 of the sales are in. They already have that data for the quarter. So they kind of know where it's going, and they know the rate of change of sales. So they have it figured out. So they can see oh, gee, all of a sudden in May, our sales have dropped off. Maybe they saw a spike in sales in May, because maybe it's oh, the rates started to come down, so maybe they had a spike. But maybe in March and April, during this whole run here, they saw their sales drop off. Or they may have seen people try to buy but couldn't buy because oh, darn, we can't get these people qualified, or whatever's going on. So they kind of know that. They kind of can figure this stuff out. So when a guy says he has a bad feeling about something, and a guy like Elon Musk, it's probably worth paying attention. As far as his, everyone work from home, get your butt in the office. Yeah, he'll probably lose some of the wrong people. That's usually how it works. All right, that's it for this one. Bye.